Vishnu Bhakti Pradini
So yesterday we heard from Bir Krishna Maharaj about the disappearance day of Madhvacharya, and today it's Ramanujacharya. So we are very fortunate, and it's not by accident, I'm sure, that their appearance and disappearance days are close to each other, because this is Krishna's transcendental arrangement to deliver Krishna consciousness to the whole world through these great acharyas, mostly coming from South India, interesting enough. So we'll be glorifying Ramanujacharya today. And I'm going to begin with this. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarudori Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarudori Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarudori Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarudori Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Sodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parikacharya Satara Sada Shishima's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Premsika Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinda Ki Jai Jai Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Guruna Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai My Bornavadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Brihat Madanga Ki Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Garanga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishvadaya Krishna Sai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So today is the divine disappearance day of Ramanujacharya, right the day after the disappearance day of Madhvacharya, And these are two great acharyas in the historical line of Krishna's mission to restore the actual teachings of the Vedas in India and around the world. So before we actually get into Ramanujacharya's appearance and activities, let's rewind a little bit here to what happened many, many thousands of years ago in the ancient times in India. The Brahmins, sometime after the Battle of Kurukshetra in the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Brahmins began to misuse the Vedic injunctions and the teachings of the Vedas to especially authorize meat eating and introduce non-Vedic understandings in the name of the Vedas. So this was a very big problem because the deviation was contaminating the tradition. And the solution was a radical one, that Krishna, he incarnated in a partial incarnation avatar as Buddha. And Lord Buddha, he decried the Vedas, and he taught an atheistic logical system of religion, so to speak, not religion in the sense that we would understand of following the Varnashram Dharma or understanding that there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was atheistic. But what he did is that he taught nonviolence, and he taught that the ultimate goal of life was a voidist understanding called nirvana. And he appeared about 500 years before the advent of Lord Jesus Christ, so about 500 years BCE, before the Common Era. And India became completely Buddhist. In fact, Buddhism started spreading to many other places where it is still. This continued. India continued as a Buddhist nation, or it wasn't one nation at the time. It was many small kingdoms. But the land of Bharat-Varsha was totally Buddhist for about 1,300 years. It's a long time, until the advent of Sankaracharya, who was Lord Shiva incarnate to reestablish the the Vedas, and he appeared in the early 8th century. So that's about 1,300 years. It's a long, long time for the Vedas to be forgotten. So he reintroduced the Vedas, but he did so through Advaita Vedanta, or monism, which basically took the shunya, the nirvishesh understanding of void, and said it was shunyavad. Oh, it's not void. There is a supreme reality, but that reality is formless, shapeless, knowingless. Interestingly enough, they're about the same thing. Void or impersonalism. It's really an untenable philosophy. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita in the 12th chapter, verse 5, he says, Klesho dikaras tesham avyakta shakta chetasam. He says that don't do this, Arjuna, and don't take up this impersonal path because it's the path of troubles. And it's illogical. One great proponent of Buddhism in the modern day is the Dalai Lama, and one time someone confronted him by saying, well, what do you mean by there's nothing, it's a void? And he said, oh, nothing's not nothing. So try to figure that one out. That nothing's not nothing. There's something in nothing. But the fact is that that philosophy is incorrect just by the very face of it. So when Sankaracharya reestablished the Vedas, but in an impersonalistic way, this was an advancement, but it wasn't what actually the true understanding of the Vedas is. So in 1017, that's about 300 years after Sankaracharya appeared, Ramanujacharya appeared. And Ramanujacharya, his name, Ramanuja, is very much indicative of who he was. He was an expansion of Lakshman, because Ramanuja means brother, so refers to younger brother. So Ramanuja meant the younger brother of Lord Ram, or Lakshman, Balaram. So he's the guru of everyone, and he's the preaching expansion of the Supreme Lord, in the sense that Lord Nityananda also has this position as the savior of the most fallen. He appeared in what is now Tamil Nadu, and the closest city that was of any size there was Kanchipuranam. He was a small village he was born into. Purumdir. And his name in Tamil is an interesting name. Was Ilaya Perumal, which means ageless God. So he's a very special personality. And he stayed on the planet for a very long time. We understand 120 years, leaving this planet in 1137. We recently celebrated the 1000th birthday or appearance day of Ramanuja in 2017, but if you want to stay around for the 1000th anniversary of his disappearance, it's going to be in 2137, so it's a long time from now. So much happened in his life in that 120 years, and there are so many stories. It's very interesting, the stories. He had so much association with different saintly persons of all different classes and types. One of his first associations as a young man was with a personality named Kanchipuranam, and Kanchipuranam was a Shudra, but they were very close. And Kanchipuranam played a very important role in the life of Ramanuja, in the sense that he helped Ramanuja renounce family life, because Ramanujacharya was married at a very young age. His father passed away when he was very young, and right after he passed away, he married this caste Brahmana woman, and whose name it is Raksha Kabal, her is her name, and they married at the age of 16. She was never very favorable to any sort of spiritual life, and at one point she greatly offended Kanchipuranam's wife, because Kanchipuranam, being a Shudra, she considered Kanchipuranam to be inferior, and the wife too. So when the wife was using the same well to get water as Ramanujacharya's wife, the Kanchipuranam's wife, was using the same well, she wouldn't take the water because it was touched by a Shudra. This became very, very distressing to Ramanujacharya, who vowed to make some kind of arrangement in order to split. So he actually forged a letter from her father saying, "Come back for a wedding ceremony." And when she left, he left, and he never came back. So he, at an early age, entered into a gurukula, being taught by I should mention that he got his name Ramanuja from Yamunacharya, and Yamunacharya was to become his guru later. So Yamunacharya, he played a very important role. We'll see later in his life, but he was in and out of his life many times, and he ultimately, Ramanuja, became the successor to Yamunacharya's mission of preaching what is called Vashishta Dvaita. Now, you have to understand that what happens is that this teaching of Vashishta Dvaita is the first step back towards the ultimately what we have, which is a Achinta Beta Beta Tattva. And Vashishta Dvaita says it's called qualified. It's the wrong one. Qualified monism or qualified Advaita. So you have Advaita Vedanta being taught by Sankara, which says that everything's void. But then you have Ramanujacharya and his followers teaching Vashishta Dvaita, which means qualified. It says that it's all one, but there's variety in that one. And the example was given of like the pomegranate. The pomegranate is one, but you open it up and it's full of little seeds. And it's not a pomegranate unless it's full of the seeds. So the pomegranate's one, but it's got a lot of variety within. So he taught this oneness with variety. His teachings were ultimately Aishvarya, the Aishvarya Marg. He taught worship of Narayan. And in fact, if you go to Sri Rangam or Kanchi Point, what the big deity? What? But then there's the deity near the other deity with the two Balaji. No, not Balaji, but you know. Sri, no, I'm talking about the one where we have a big temple. It's I just forgot his name. He's got Bhu Devi and Tirupati. Yes, yeah, Balaji. Yeah. So Balaji. I mean, this is the vision that he has of the Aishvarya, Ranganath or Balaji, great Vishnu, very powerful form. And so he taught that ultimately we have a relationship with God, and it's an servitor relationship, but it's not close relationship in the sense of like we know from Lord Chaitanya, or we know from other acharyas later on. Even as we learned yesterday with Madhvacharya, you know, he has the relation. He has Krishna, Udupi Krishna. Which is it's a very personal form, or a less distant sort of, I'm worshiping you because you're the great, you know, you go to Tirupati and, you know, Balaji is like 14 feet tall or something like that. He's very big. You know he's God because he's very, very powerful. It's interesting because this mood that he had, which was like Vaidhi Bhakti, it's very formal, and there are stories at the one time that he visited Puri, and he was rather put off by the fact that the priests in Puri had a very relaxed way of worshiping Jagannath, and he was very sort of like well, you're not doing it right. And he instructed them, you have to do this according to Vaidhi. Now, Lord Jagannath, we also know that he expresses himself very nicely to his devotees, sometimes rather strongly. This happened with Pundarik Vijayanidhi when he was upset that Lord Jagannath was having starched cloth, and he complained, and then he had a dream in which Lord Jagannath came and slapped him around because he said, look, this is what I want to wear, and don't go around telling people what to do. So in this way, also, Ramanujacharya had a dream after he gave that instruction in Puri, and Lord Jagannath said, look, I like to be worshipped like this, not like what you said. This is more intimate and friendly. And then there's different stories the way it's told, but the agreement is that the next morning when he woke up, he was no longer in Jagannath Puri, but he was in Andhra Pradesh, and he had been like kicked out and thrown back to some other place. So, yeah, Kurmakshetra, yeah. So he was removed from Puri by Lord Jagannath. So we can see how the relationship of these great devotees with God, with Krishna, with Vishnu is very personal and sometimes a little bit spicy. So anyway, as a young boy, 16 or so, he's in a Gurukula in his hometown, and this is a Gurukula of an impersonalist named Yadava Prakash. And Yadava Prakash was teaching impersonalism, monism, and he had, we know this story. The most famous story is when he was being massaged by Ramanujacharya, and Ramanuja was listening to him describe a verse from I don't know which Chandogya Upanishad. Okay, and that verse described the lotus eyes of the Lord, and this rascal started describing the lotus eye of the Lord by comparing it to the rear end of a monkey, and this was something that Ramanuja could not bear to hear, and he started to cry. And when he was crying, these hot tears sprinkled upon the body of Yadava Prakash, and he said, "Why are you crying?" And he said, "Well, Gurudev, you've just given a description of the Lord which is very, very offensive." And he said, "What? Who are you to tell me? I'm your guru. This is Guru Aparat. You can't not speak to me like this." And then he said, "Well, if you've got a better interpretation, what is it?" And then in a very gentle voice, Ramanuja said, "Well, dear Gurudev, there's no need to give a low-minded interpretation to the verse when the real meaning is direct and glorious." Then he says, "Well, let's hear your interpretation, which is so glorious." And then Ramanuja, he went on to describe in detail, but the essence of it is that the two eyes of the Supreme Lord are lovely as two lotuses that are blossomed by the rays of the sun. Because in Sanskrit you can divide words up in different ways. So he took the word kapyasan as being the rear end of a monkey, whereas it was divided. This word was divided up differently to be the rays, the lotus being bloomed by the rays of the sun. So Yadava Acharya said, "Well, I see you speak as though there was actually a supreme person. That is due to your childish ignorance. You have not learned your lessons properly. You should always remember that the Supreme is without form, without name, and without attributes." This is monism. This is the Dvaita Vedanta. That is the teaching of the great Shankar. In the future, you should not voice your foolish sentiments. The words of Yadava were painful to Ramanuja's ears, but out of respect for his teacher, he remained silent. And then a second incident occurred a few days later, where Yadavacharya said that while explaining a verse from the Taittiriya Upanishad, beginning with Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, Yadava said that Brahman was intelligence, truth, and the infinite. Hearing this explanation, Ramanuja politely added, Brahman is endowed with the qualities of intelligence, truth, and the infinite. This means that he is not covered by ignorance as the ordinary living entities are. He is never untruthful, and his energies are unlimited, not limited. The Supreme Brahman is the reservoir of all good qualities, yet he is superior to all those qualities as the sun globe is superior to sunlight. The agitation which Yadava felt within his mind made his voice tremble. You young fool, he shouted. Your conclusions do not agree with those of Shankar or any of the previous masters. If you are going to persist with this useless talk about a personal God, why come here at all? It's simply to waste my time. Why don't you start your own school and teach whatever you like? Now get out of the classroom immediately. So he did, and he started his own school. And Ramanuja started as a young man, sort of like Lord Chaitanya as a teenage boy, young man. Started his own school, and he got a lot of followers. And he was teaching there. What he taught is that Ramanuja lectures were wholly theistic. He rejected the concept that the jiva, the living entity, could be equal to the Supreme Brahman or become God, as postulated by Shankar. The living entity, Ramanuja taught, is a particle of Godhead, and as such, his position is to serve the complete whole. He said that as the hand is part of the body, and thus the servant of the body, similarly the living entity is part of the Supreme, and thus his constitutional position is to serve the Supreme. He taught Bhakti is the only process to actually understand the Supreme Lord, whereas, of course, the Shankarites and Yadava Prakash were teaching that Gyan was the highest understanding. The philosophy of Shankar stated that everything is Brahman, and Brahman itself is absolute, homogeneous, undifferentiated, and without personality. But this concept was staunchly opposed by Ramanuja. His philosophy stated that there can never be knowledge of an unqualified object. The object necessarily points to the knowledge necessarily points to an object as characterized in some way. Ramanuja never admitted to attributeless, undifferentiated Brahman, but rather a Brahman which has an attribute of a greater reality. Godhead himself, he reasoned, is greater than all other living entities, and the Supreme Personality is the ultimate personality. And he went on to speak this way, and his preaching was rejecting Ramanuja and directly attacking that of Yadava Prakash. Yadava Prakash noticed this, and he became a little bit disturbed, more than a little bit disturbed. He became so disturbed that he had to hatch a plan that maybe we could get rid of this person who's competing with me teaching and actually getting more people listening to him than me. And after all, I'm very important. So they wanted to have a field trip to go to the Ganges for a purification. And so that, of course, to walk from Tamil Nadu to the Ganges is like 1,000 miles. 1,500 kilometers, a long way. So they invited Ramanuja to come along. And so Ramanuja agreed to come along, and so did Ramanuja's cousin, Govinda. He came along. But the plan was actually to dispose of Ramanuja when they got to the Ganges by drowning him, and therefore getting rid of this competitor who was preaching. Govinda happened to hear this plan being hatched, and he tipped off Ramanuja on the way, and Ramanuja just dropped out of sight. And Govinda told everyone that, actually, a tiger ate him. So they were all boo-hoo-hoo, but they were actually great. So they went up to the Ganges and bathed. Took a long time to get there. But that left Ramanuja lost in the jungle someplace, and he had to get back to Kanchipornam, which was going to be a difficult task considering he didn't even know what direction to go in. Now, the next part of the story is, it varies depending on who tells it. Some people say it was Lakshmi Narayan, or some people say it's Sita Ram, and this particular one said it was Sita and Ram. Anyway, he's wandering around bewildered, and he meets this Grihastha couple by a well, and they give him some water, and he asks if they can show the way back, and they say, oh yeah, we can show you the way back to Kanchipornam. We know the way back. So he goes to sleep, and the next morning he wakes up, and they're not around. But then he wanders into the next town, and he asks someone, where's Kanchipornam? He said, well, you're there. Back in Kanchipornam, and he's figuring, whoa, what has happened? But he was delivered there by Sita and Ram, or Lakshmi Narayan, depending on who's telling the story. But it was a Supreme Lord and his consort who delivered this very bewildered young man who didn't know how to get back to his hometown. And he got back really quick. So when Yadavacharya, many weeks later, or perhaps even months later, gets back to Kanchipornam, what do they see? Oh my God. Here's my nemesis, he's here. And how did he get back here? What's going on? And so he's very disturbed, but he can't. But he has to pretend that everything is fine. So Ramanuja continues to preach. And now Ramanuja had many different contacts with different gurus. There was one guru he had a contact with, his name was Goshtipurnam. And Goshtipurnam, he had a mantra, a secret mantra, that Ramanuja Acharya really wanted. And this secret mantra, he was told, and actually Goshtipurnam wasn't going to give it to him, but he kept insisting, I want the mantra. So finally he gave him the mantra, which was Om Namo Narayanaya. And he said, you cannot give this to anybody else. He said, because it's just for you. So he gave him that mantra, and then immediately Ramanujacharya, he went onto the rooftops and started chanting Om Namo Narayanaya to everybody, and everybody started chanting, and this was like chanting the same thing as Hare Krishna, but it's to Narayan. And so Goshtipurnam became really irate and said, you're going to go to hell because you just disobeyed your Gurudev. So we see in a lot of ways here, Ramanuja is disobeying Gurudev when Gurudev is not giving the proper instruction. Not to be done at home because we're not Ramanuja. But the point being is that we're seeing here what the real Siddhanta is. And the real Siddhanta is you don't hide the Maha Mantra from anyone. It's given to everybody, like Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda did. So this Om Namo Narayanaya, he said he gave it to everybody, and then he told his guru, said, well, if I go to hell, I go to hell. His guru was like shocked. Oh my God, who is this person? And the guru ended up surrendering to him because he could see that actually Ramanuja was a great, great personality and not to be misunderstood. We're coming towards the end in about 5 minutes, and I want to get up to some areas here. But the one thing I want to talk about is that Yamunacharya did send for him later in his life, and he asked him to come and please meet me in Sri Rangam. So he goes to Sri Rangam, but when he gets there, he finds out that Yamunacharya has passed away. He's no longer in the earth. No longer, his body's there, but he's not there. And so when he gets there, Yamunacharya's hand, one hand, it's clenched, and he has three fingers held down. And he's asked he finds out, and I have to find the place where it says it exactly so I don't misdo it here, that, let's see, one of these has it. Anyway, I'm not finding it, but there are three wishes that Yamunacharya has. One is, I can't remember. Do you remember what they are? Yeah. Name a disciple after Parashara Muni. Write a commentary in Vedanta Sutra, and it's here, and I can't find it. Anyway, there are three desires he has. And basically, those desires are that Ramanuja take up and be the guru after him. And as Ramanuja names what he's going to do, most importantly, he's going to write a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Vedanta Sutra, excuse me. Yeah, on the Vedanta Sutra. And that he's going to name a follower, because Parashara Muni was like the teacher of Yamunacharya. He was the founder of the line. So he would continue the line. So he takes up the mantle of being the guru after Yamunacharya. And he continues being the guru for a very long time. I mean, until he's 120 years old. So at the end of his life, when he's 120 years old, he's living in Sri Rangam, and he's serving the deity of Narayan there. And he actually comes to a point where he tells his disciples that I'm going to leave now. He's already spoken to the deity, and the deity is saying, it's time for you to leave. So his disciples, they're crying, and they say, and now remember, he's 120. He's probably outlived most of his disciples. But the disciples, grand-disciples, and grand-grand-disciples of people who are following him, they're grieving. So to appease their afflicted hearts, Ramanuja spoke his last instructions to those who are most dear to him. And these instructions are good for us today. And these instructions are, always remain in the company of and serve those souls devoted to Godhead just as you would serve your own spiritual preceptor. So always serve and be in association of devotees and serve devotees. Have faith in the teachings of the Vedas and in the words of great saints. So have faith in the teachings of the Vedas. Read the Bhagavatam, read the Gita, read the Acharya's works, associate with devotees in reading this. Never become a slave of your senses. Always strive to conquer the three great enemies of self-realization. What are they? Lust, anger, and greed. Worship Narayan and take pleasure in uttering the holy names of God as your only refuge. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Sincerely serve the devotees of Godhead. By service to the great devotees, the highest service is done, and one quickly gains the supreme mercy. Remembering these things, you should live happily in this world for attaining the next. With these departing words, Ramanuja, keeping his head on the lap of Govinda, his cousin, who must also be very old at this point, and his mind fixed in spiritual trance, relinquished his mortal body and entered the realm of Vaikuntha. Govinda left a few days later, and this is such an important day that we remember Ramanujacharya, who's the first Acharya to start unwinding the misconceptions of Sankaracharya, the monistic understanding, and leading up to the great mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and the great mercy of our Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Mainam Kanvanta Maravindanalayataksham Marhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Namago Om Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Samaniti Namindaya Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Vacha, Nagini Visesha, Shunyavati, Masajade, Satarane. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaurvata Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaurvata Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaurata Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Re Ore. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Nam Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Rat, Agurukinana, Nagarukinana, Dragare. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe, Jai Om.
Chaitodarpana marjanam bhava mahadavagni nivapanam Shreya Kairavya Chandrikavitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Murnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Haribo Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapitani Amita Smarane Nakala Tadrishita Vakripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjanina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amani Namana Dena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Gripayata Vapada Pankaja Stita Duli Sadrashim Vachintaya Nayanam Gadadashru Daraya Varanam Gad Gadarudaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Yugayatam Namishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlishyavapadam Radam Rastumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yatatava vidadatu lampato mat prananatastu sa eva napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Ki Jai.